guess I can't sell my car on the street anymore in front of your restaurant.
Good thing you don't put it in front of my restaurant. That'd have blown the windows out of it.
I think my glass was here.
You asked me not to park my motorhome in front
Oh, wow. That's horrible.
Yeah, when are you going to get rid of that old motorhome you have up there in your house?
Okay, y'all ready?
They save it for Nancy?
Yeah, they're here. Okay, well, let's get started then. Not yet.
That's all? Just 4 points?
Good evening. It's time to start our City Council meeting, and we're very happy to have you with us. It looks like we have the entire student body from Rancho Buena Vista High School. It must be the end of the semester, or getting near the end of the semester. We're happy to have you with us tonight. We hope that you find joy in being here to see how your city government works. We'd like to welcome the rest of you here as well. This is a consolidated meeting of our City Council, our Community Development Commission, and our Buena Sanitation District. We'll begin by having a roll call from the City Clerk.
The record will reflect that all members are present.
We're very happy to have with us tonight Celia Tagderi, a member of the Baha'i Faith, who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and an invocation. If you'd all rise and remain standing for the invocation.
Place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. O thou compassionate Lord, thou who art generous and able, we are servants of thine sheltered beneath thy providence. Cast thy glance of favor upon us. Give light to our eyes, hearing to our ears, and understanding and love to our hearts. Render our souls joyous and happy through thy glad tidings. O Lord, point out to us the pathway of thy kingdom and resuscitate all of us through the breaths of the Holy Spirit. Bestow upon us life everlasting and confer upon us never-ending honor. Unify mankind and illumine the world of humanity. May we all follow thy pathway, long for thy good pleasure, and seek the mysteries of thy kingdom. O God, unite us and connect our hearts with thy indissoluble bond. Verily, thou art the giver, thou art the kind one, and thou art the Almighty.
Thank you very much. Okay, next is the approval of the agenda. Are there any items to add to the agenda or to delete?
There are no additions or deletions, Mayor.
Okay, we did hold a closed session prior to this council meeting with our city attorney, and we'll ask him to give a report of the actions taken.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The council met on the 2 items reflected on today's closed session agenda, items CS1 and CS2. No actions were taken that are required to be reported at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For those of you that are standing in the back, we don't sign any papers for less than an hour, so you might as well come up and sit down. We'd be happy. There's plenty of seats up front. And Captain Curran, do you have an introduction tonight for us? All right. Well, we'll do it next time then. Okay, we have 2 presentations that we'd like to make this evening. I'd like to ask Chief Gary Fisher, our fire chief, to come forward. And then also Keely Garcia and Deidre Smith, that they please come forward. Chief Fisher to give a description of why we're issuing this proclamation this evening.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, Dee Smith was the person who had the opportunity to intervene in a situation where a couple of Rottweilers were attacking a 12-year-old. Clayton's 10 years old, and so disregarding her own safety, she jumped right in and took the dogs off of Clayton, and so we thought it would be appropriate for the council to recognize that. I would say that Keely Garcia was also. Is that Keely? No. Okay. Keely Garcia was also there after Dee started this, but so we wanted to recognize Dee for the great job that she did. This is definitely saved the little boy's life, most likely.
We have a proclamation that we'd like to read that would honor you for your efforts. If you'd mind if I read this, it says, whereas on the morning of October 30th, 2009, Deidre Smith was driving down the street with her 5-year-old son, and whereas on that same morning, Clayton Snow, a student at Madison Middle School, was walking to school. As Deidre was passing, she saw that 2 full-grown Rottweilers were attacking Clayton, dragging him down the street and biting him repeatedly. Whereas Deidre immediately stopped her vehicle and proceeded to help Clayton by putting herself in the middle of the attack. And whereas Deidre was able to separate Clayton from the dogs, which had bitten him over 40 times, requiring stitches and antibiotics. And whereas Deidre was also bitten numerous times and had her clothing shredded, but was able to get Clayton into her vehicle and out of harm's way. And whereas the Vista City Council, upon recommendation from the Vista Fire Department, desires to recognize Deidre Smith for life-saving efforts. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the mayor and members of the Vista City Council recognize Deidre Smith with this Life Safety Award proclamation, and do hereby proclaim Thursday, December 10th, 2009, as Deidre Smith Day in the city of Vista, and is signed by all members of the council. And we'd really like to say how grateful we are for what you've done. Just one further comment. We often read in the newspapers of people who see things happening and they just stand by and watch, or they don't do anything. And I think it's just commendable that you did, at peril to your own safety, that you stopped and you did what you did and saved this young man's from further injury. And so we're very appreciative of that, and I think that this honor is well deserved. Would you like to say anything?
Thank you very much.
Okay, did you want to? This is one for Keith as well. Take that one. Thank you. The next part of our city council meeting is a consideration of the consent calendar. These are items that are listed on the agenda that require no further discussion or that are ministerial in nature and will be approved or with one vote of the city council for all items. These are items C1 through, I believe, C18. Are there any items that the council wishes to pull from the consent calendar? Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Move for adoption.
Second, Mayor.
We have a motion and a second. If you'd please cast your vote. Okay, and the consent calendar is approved unanimously. The next item or the next set of items that we'll go to is the discussion items. The first item is the first discussion item is from the Public Arts Commission, and it's regarding the Kites Over Vista program. And And we'll ask Bill Fortmuller if he would give us a report.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Before you tonight are the 8 submittals for the 3rd year of the Kites Over Vista program. The goals of this program are to create a successful temporary art program within the city by enhancing Vista through a variety of unique original artwork, stimulate public interest in the art, engage and educate visitors to the City of Vista's public art program, and provide a venue for artists to promote their work. The 8 selected sculptures for you today. There were 12 sculptures submitted by 9 artists. 5 of the 9 are from the City of Vista. This first sculpture is called The Green Machines by Charles Bronson. It has 3, I'll call them wings. I guess they're branches or trees, but it'll spin in the wind. And on the bottom are 3 solar-powered LED lights, which will spin and illuminate the sidewalk underneath at night. This next sculpture is called Wind Beams by Robert Rochin. He's done several projects before. He did the Big Blue Kite and also the Flock of Kites, which is in front of the Vista Art Foundation. This one is a free-spinning contemporary sculpture. All the beams are balanced, but they all move independently of each other. And I believe they're going to be different colors when he's all done. This one here is by Robert Maya. This is called Son of Kites. This will be a 3-foot square box with sculptured sides. Inside the box are mirrors that will reflect 4 solar-powered LED lights. So at nighttime, the light will illuminate out of these the sun shapes and the star shapes, and it'll spin in the wind. This is called Steel Ray by Kent Scott. It's a stingray with a kelp-shaped body. And the pole will be decorated to look like bamboo, and he's going to have starfish and other sea creatures going up the pole to kind of enhance it as it's there. It's about, I think the wingspan is 15 feet, and it's like 12 feet down with the tail helping to support the sculpture on the
Bill,
column.
maybe you might want to pick them up and show them to the audience as well.
This one's rather heavy, but it's got this will be a hot dip galvanized. It's going to be hand forged, and it's going to have a patina finish. And it should be, this one was very popular by the commission. It kind of grows on you after a while when you look at it. It's very different, but it does have a tail, so it can still be considered a kite.
And how tall will that be?
It will be about 12 feet up in the air.
Okay.
This next one here is by Josh Bowman. It's called Cloud Formation, and there's 6 or 8 independent discs that will all spin around, and the shadows and the should create, imitate clouds in the sky, an ever-changing cloud movement in the sky. They'll all rotate independently. This is called Spinning Glass by Buddy Smith. There's 2 crescent-shaped lightweight concrete sculptures. These will be steel cables, and there's going to be fused glass woven in within the steel, so it'll vibrate in the wind and move and create different colors with the light going through it. This is by Melissa Ralston. It's called Mayday. It's your traditional maypole with flowers, butterflies, and kites. And the last one is Flower Pinwheel. It's not quite to scale. This should be a little bit shorter, but these are like the pinwheels you had as a child, and you would blow on, and they'd move in different directions. And so that's what this one will do. It's supposed to resemble like a poppy. And so we have, I think, of the 8, 6 have movement of some kind, 2 have lighting. So we've kind of gone up in technology somewhat over the last 3 years.
And so these will all be about 12 feet high?
Correct. They'll all be. They're given a 12-foot, 10-foot pole which sits on top of the 2-foot box. They're about 12 feet off the ground. And each artist will be paid an honorarium of $1,250. The artwork remains the property of the artist over the year of the exhibit, and they can be sold, but they must remain in place until the exhibit's over. The sculptures will go up in May of next year and be up for 1 year. Of the first year exhibit, 6 of the 8 sculptures were donated to the city, the school district, or Alta Vista Gardens. 3 were purchased and donated to one of the 3 parties, and the others were donated by the artists. So for the we received about a $34,000 donation in artwork, the value that was placed on the artwork at the time. So far this year, 1 sculpture has been purchased. It's the butterfly down by the wave, and it's going to be donated to the Alta Vista Gardens when it comes down in May. That's the end of my report. I'm available for any questions you may have.
Well, I think over the last 3 years that we've been very fortunate to have these in Vista, and some of them they're all very creative, and some of them have really been kind of a special piece of artwork that we're able to enjoy for a long period of time. So these look very creative as well. Are there any comments the council wants to make? You know, I don't think this thing's working. Let me, if you just, Mr. Lopez, I think I saw your hand first. Let me get this thing done over again. Go ahead, Mr. Lopez.
Thank you. Do we, by any chance, have a catalog that we're going by that I think, so that, let's say, 10 years from now, 5 years from now, that we can look back on the history when we first started? That way, when people around the country come to our community, like there could be a catalog at the chamber building where they can look at it and say, hey, this is what's in our community. Are we making something like that? Do we have something like that?
Yeah, on the city webpage, on the public arts section, we do have them cataloged, and we have the walking tour map, which we update every year with the new sculptures, and as we add murals, we add that to the map too. So we're accumulating a list, and it's a electronic catalog, but we do have them right now.
But we don't have something that we can actually make a catalog, where we can down the road have it on display at different businesses or in the city here, where when people come to visit, the first thing they do, they go to the chamber or one of those buildings or the historical society, and they look at things like that, and that attracts and that keeps people in our community. We don't have that yet.
We don't have it yet, but we have all the images, saved that we can create that. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Mayor. I had one question. It had to do with scale, and scale might be either surface area or width as proportionality to the elements of it. In taking people around town to show what we've already done so far, number one, they're very much impressed and excited that we're doing it, and I'm so pleased that we're doing it. But there have been a couple where the scale has been relatively small to the height and not as noticeable as others might be. And I wonder, and I don't see anything in our criteria that requests that the scale be reflected in either a surface area measurement or a width measurement.
Yeah, we haven't really required that, no. But we can do that next. We can do that next year. Yeah.
And the other, it seems to me, this would be a marvelous opportunity for sponsorship, to have some companies that are local, hopefully, that would want to put their name on these things as helping us with this program and bring it to Vista, and even take the sculpture then possibly with some arrangement with the artist to their own facilities, so that it's remained in public view for an ongoing basis. Has the commission considered that?
We have. We'd like to find sponsors. We're currently trying to find sponsors for the Sprinter murals, so we didn't want to kind of oversaturate it, but that we would like to see that sometime. Like maybe some of the businesses in town, or the restaurants, say, hey, I'd like to put one of these in front of my restaurant, and we could do that and certainly give them.
And who would they contact if they had an interest?
They would contact myself.
And you're in what department?
Recreation and Community Services.
And they would call what number?
726-1340, extension 1148.
Thanks, Mr. Frogman.
Okay.
Mrs. Ritter.
Well, I love this project, and I think we should thank Carol Lee for the artist that originally had the idea of doing kites. So it's very exciting, and but I was wondering, the ones that aren't purchased in the current set, do we have a way of advertising them for sale, or if somebody wanted to purchase one, how do they go about that? Are there prices put on them and advertised?
Yeah. What we've done the last
2 years, and we're just getting ready in January. We post them on the website, pictures of them and what the asking price is by the artist, and it is negotiable with the artist. And we're also going to do some press releases. That's what was successful last year in getting them purchased or donated.
And then, so if there was some that they wanted to purchase and just leave them where they are, could that be, is that possible?
That can happen. We'd probably need to add on to the purchase price the cost of the pot and the additional pole to relocate another one
They can
somewhere else.
relocate another one.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that would be the desire to keep expanding the program. We added 2 last year, the Joy figure and the Big Blue Kite, and added, we added those. So we'd like to continue growing and move on down up Santa Fe as the redevelopment project continues, and on Vista Way and Main Street.
I just think it's a fun project, and I love the one in front of Urban Pizza, and I think it kind of goes with that building right there, so I'm hoping somebody will buy that and leave it there, so, okay.
Okay, Mr. Gronke.
Yeah, I just want to say what a great project it is, too, and more so, I think when I looked at the renderings in the book, they didn't speak much, but then we had a discussion just before this meeting, and you showed some of the qualities of these and some of the features that they have, and I think they'll be wonderful, just like the ones we have already. And I think you answered my question, and that was the expansion of the program. It sounds like we have plans on expanding it down Santa Fe and other
Yes.
parts of the city as we go along. And so then we'll continue to update our map, our walking map then.
Correct. We update it annually. When the new kites go up, we add the new ones in. And in addition to the kites, if there's any, like in this next round, we'll add the sculpture at the fire station, and we'll add any murals that might occur in the next year on there as well. So it's kind of a catalog of our public art downtown, and then we list other locations that might be within the city too.
And we have more than enough considering that huge mural we have behind Vistacado, too.
Yes.
Good job.
Okay, Mr. Campbell.
I want to thank the commission again for their work and for Mr. Fortmuller for your diligence on this, because you and Public Works make it happen, and I'd like to move for adoption of the resolution.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Please cast your votes. Okay, and the resolution is adopted unanimously. We move on to the next discussion item, which is vehicles for sale on public streets. Mr. Pierce?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm Larry Pierce, City Engineer, and I have Sam Hessedin with me, which is the Traffic Engineer, and he will be making the presentation this evening.
Good evening. And I will start out with a little background on some of the issues associated with vehicles for sale on public street, which I think a lot of us are familiar with. But for many years, residents throughout the city have come to us and expressed concern with vehicles parked on city streets displayed for sale. And some of the major concerns that have been expressed is, first of all, sight distance. A lot of these vehicles park near driveways and public street intersections and block sight distance for vehicles pulling out of these driveways and side streets. There's also been concern expressed with the traffic flow. A lot of prospective buyers tend to slow down in the travel lane to view the vehicles and the information on the vehicles. Sometimes they even leave their cars and kind of walk around to look at the cars displayed for sale, which creates potential for collisions as well as impedes the traffic flow. Parking supply is another issue. Some neighborhoods where parking demand is high, these vehicles tend to congregate in large numbers and take up available parking supply. And there's also the overall issue of quality of life. Just to look at a neighborhood, the aesthetics that these cars tend to impact. So in response, the city has employed sort of spot treatments, such as time limit parking and overnight parking prohibitions, and sometimes actually just taking the parking away altogether to deter these vehicles from being displayed on city streets. And what these spot treatments have done is to just shift the problem to other streets and causing the same impacts, basically shifting the impacts Therefore, a more comprehensive solution was determined to be needed, and the answer was found in the California Vehicle Code, which gives the authority to local agencies to adopt ordinances to regulate the parking of such vehicles. And the way an ordinance works based on the Vehicle Code is if a local agency adopts an ordinance and posts signs on a street, then a vehicle that is parked for the primary purpose of displaying it for sale is cited if found parked on that street. And then if the same vehicle is found on the same street or any other street that is signed within 24 hours, well, not less than 24 hours, but within 30 days, then the vehicle may be towed away. So we drafted an ordinance in accordance with those guidelines based on the Vehicle Code. And the ordinance is recommended to cover all city streets. However, we will start with a list of streets that is included in your packet and shown on the maps also in the packet. And we propose to sign those streets initially. And if other streets become a problem, then the proposed ordinance gives the authority to the city manager to implement the restrictions on other streets. And we also have drafted a council policy to give guidelines and requirements of how a street can be added. So some of the things we'll be looking at if a request is made for a street to be included. We'll look at the number of vehicles displayed for sale. We will also look at impacts to traffic flow, parking, and residents' quality of life that these vehicles is having. And if a restriction is determined appropriate, then a petition will be required from the affected street residents. We would require at least 51% of the impacted residents or the affected residents on the street submit a petition. So as part of this proposal, we propose to cover all major and collector streets in the city, basically, and that's shown on two maps. This is the north half of the city and the south half of the city, and there's also a list of all the streets in your packet. And these are basically all the major streets where we've seen the problem of these vehicles parked for sale, as well as collector streets that are heavily traveled, where a lot of these streets also have seen the problem. So the objective was to cover all these streets so that the problem is not shifted if we cover only a limited number of streets. And these are some pictures of from around the city of sort of a congregation of these vehicles. This is a picture on West Vista Way in front of the County Credit Union. This is on Durian Street off of West Vista Way. This is on Emerald Drive. This is on Taylor Street off of East Vista Way. This is on South Melrose Drive. This is also on South Melrose Drive. This is on North Santa Fe Avenue, as well as this one. This is on Los Angeles Drive, which is a collector street, as well as this is a collector street, which is Townside Drive. So, in summary, the recommendation is to adopt the ordinance to regulate the parking of vehicles displayed for sale on public streets, as well as to adopt the draft council policy outlining the requirements for adding new streets.
Okay. We have one person that has requested to speak. Do you want to hear him first, or do you want to go ahead and ask your questions? Okay. Cliff Kaiser.
My name is Cliff Kaiser, 1800 Thibodeau Road, Suite 220, Vista. Good evening, Mayor, Council. I have a couple of concerns about this ordinance, and I brought these up at the City Commission, and it doesn't appear that they've been addressed here since then by the Engineering Department. The concern that was expressed in this briefing here were vehicles slowing down to look at for sale vehicles. And I queried at the commission meeting, what statistics do we have from the sheriff's department showing that people are in accidents because of this, or is this just anecdotal evidence saying that that could happen? Or if there's people walking around their car, a for sale sign, are they creating a traffic hazard? Again, no evidence, no statistics showing that this is a real problem. The sight distance issue, that seems like that's a parking issue that can be addressed with existing parking ordinance. If you're parked too close to the edge of the to the corner, or too close to a driveway, that's going to be an issue whether it's a car's for sale or not. You know, do you want a car to park there or not? It's going to create the same sight distance issue. Is it consuming valuable parking? Yeah, but that car is going to park someplace anyhow, whether it's going to be in front of his house or down the street in front of or closer to the main drive. Now, I would agree wholeheartedly that when you get clusters of cars, that they do tend to create an aesthetic issue, and that would be one reason to perhaps support this. But the other reasons, I don't see that there's clear evidence. The one remaining issue that was mentioned is that the wording in the ordinance, and I believe it hasn't changed since the Traffic Commission, was that the primary purpose for selling the car is parked there for sale. You know, I had my car ticketed back many years ago when I was in Santee because the apartments that I lived in, the parking lot filled up. I just happened to be selling my car at the time, so I parked on the street and was ticketed. So this means that just an innocent resident wanting to sell their car is going to have to go through some kind of machinations if they're close to one of these main drags. The alternative would be perhaps to take the section that talks about how do you change the ordinance, how do you add streets to it by getting 51% of the residents to say this is a problem. Why not start off that with all the streets instead of blocking off all these streets from the beginning? Thank you.
Thank you. Do any of you have any questions of Mr. Kaiser? Okay. Are there any questions that council has concerning this? Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Mayor. Sam, can you go to Exhibit 5, page 2, the smaller scale map of the Shadow Ridge area? I have just two questions. One is that the portion of Melrose that runs through I believe it's the city of Oceanside. Yes. It seemed maybe we're dumping a problem onto the city of Oceanside. Have we talked to their traffic people about that issue, and is there a thought that you might want to talk to them about that? Not see just a pile of cars stuck in that little triangle area?
That's a great idea. We have not done that. I don't believe they have the same kind of ordinance or even pursuing it, but we can tell them what we're going to do. That we can do that.
Might be a good neighbor thing.
Yes.
The other is on Robolini and also on out on Santa Fe. There's a portion there that maybe it's too narrow and people wouldn't park there for safety reasons, but is there what thought did you have of not including that?
Robolini
at Santa Fe.
Actually, Robolini's not included. Robolini's actually in the county. It's the other one.
Is it down here?
Yeah, it's in. I'm sorry.
Well, Sycamore becomes Robolini. That is county.
Right. Yeah, it is, if you see on the picture here, sure. The end of the yellow area. Oh, there he goes. That's the county limit, and that's the end of Sycamore and the beginning of Robolini.
There you go. Well, I guess the same question then arises as to adjoining jurisdiction that
we can inform the county.
Wonder why that's piling in there.
Yeah, we'll inform the county also.
I know what Mr. Kaiser is saying, and I understand that, but one of the things over the 7 years I've been on the council is annually appropriating red paint. And we not only do you have to paint it once, but then you have to paint it again, and if you don't, it looks nasty. This seems to make a lot more sense in terms of these streets, and I'm sure we'll be hearing from neighborhoods that say, well, thanks, you just dumped this problem into our neighborhood, but you have a mechanism then that we can review this going forward.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Lopez.
Thank you, Mayor. Does this prohibit people from selling a car on their own property?
No, it does not.
It does not. Okay. This particular item goes back quite a ways with myself here, is that I learned a long time ago that there's some folks in the area that have several cars that are for sale. I mean, there could be a dozen cars for sale. In the state of California, one person is only allowed to sell 4 cars per year. But here in Vista, what I've found is that there's folks from other communities who have cars, who do not change the name in the car into their own name and bring them to our city and sell them, and another city gets the sale, what's it called? The fee on it. So they basically, they dump on our city. I was going down on the frontage road down on West Vista Way one day, and there was a whole mess of cars out there, and this was several years back. That's what made me aware of the problem, is that there was several cars along the road, and all of a sudden the gentleman just was looking and pulled over real fast and didn't pay attention. I was behind him, and I almost had an accident there, and luckily I was paying attention, but I also had my eye on what was going on there. And so, but luckily I was paying attention enough so that it can create a problem when you have several people looking at several cars along the street. So, but my big thing is that, if you're going to have 10, 12 cars or 15 cars on the streets of Vista, you need to have a lot and sell them on a lot and do it the right way. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Grunke.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of quick questions. It seems that Vista has quite a few private drives. Is this applicable to those areas, or this is just in public streets?
This is just in public streets.
Okay. And the second question goes along with Mr. Lopez says, if you can sell from your private property, is there some way that we can control signage on those cars? Because I can imagine someone saying, oh, I'm pretty far off the street, I'm going to increase the sign of the size of my sign in order to capture attention.
I believe we'd probably push that into code compliance or code enforcement and ask them to address that issue.
So there is some way that we can control that too. Thank you. I think it's a good idea.
Okay, I agree as well. Mrs. Ritter?
I was going to say I agree as well, and I was going to make a motion.
Okay, and do we have a second? Okay, I think Mr. Lopez seconded that first, and so we'll ask you to please cast your votes. Get mine? It doesn't seem to want to. Oh, I'm pushing the wrong thing. You got it now? Okay. All right, and that passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is the fiscal year 2009-2010 first quarter financial report. Mr. Gardner and Mr. Nelson.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I'm Tom Gardner. I'm the finance director for the city of Vista. With me on my right is Dale Nielsen, the finance manager. Dale prepares this report for the council quarterly. We just did our fourth quarter report here last month, so this is the first quarter of 2009-10. Dale will do a presentation. Mr. Gelder may want to make comment at the end regarding some reductions to the budget, and I'm here for questions at the conclusion.
Thank you, Mr. Gardner. Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. Before you, we present the fiscal year 2009-2010 first quarter financial report. Let me begin starting about discussing expenditures for just a moment. General fund operating expenditures at this point are pretty much in line with budgetary expectations that we normally see so far through this time of the year. Details of those expenditures by department can be found on Exhibit 5 of the report. While most general fund revenues are doing pretty much as expected, there are a handful of general fund revenue sources that do warrant downward adjustment at this time due to the continued erosion of the current economic circumstances. These downward adjustments totaling $1 million can be found on page 2 of the staff report. These reductions will be funded by use of year-end fund balance that was approved in the fourth quarter report last month that was set aside for the 2010-2011 fiscal year budget to be possibly used then. But Council may recall that the possibility of needing those reserves to help out with this year's budget was discussed at that time. There are also currently 7 recommended budget adjustments at this time dealing with various expenditure programs. Those are also summarized on page 2 of the report, and there's a detailed discussion of each recommended budget adjustment on Exhibit 2. All of those budget adjustments are funded by either use of a designated reserve or an increase in a revenue estimate. Also included at the report at this time is a number of recommended personnel changes. Discussion of those items are detailed out on Exhibit 13 of the report. Mr. Gardner or myself are available to answer any questions that you may have or any comments.
Okay, are there any questions from the City Council? Mr. Campbell?
One is, if we don't have an answer tonight, that's fine, but I'm sure you give me an answer. On the phone lease,
Yes.
1 year, what's the buyout term on the phone system, or do we just turn it back and get another one?
I believe that actually has a buyout of like $1 at the end of the lease.
Probably approved.
Yeah, that's just simply a result when we were preparing the budget for this current year. We thought that the lease was going to be done in August of '09, but it was really August of '10.
Sure,
So that was
I
just
understand
an oversight during the budget preparation.
Thanks for the clarification.
Certainly.
Okay, are there any other questions by council?
Well, Mayor, if I may, just one more. Page 4 of 45, we talk about building activity. And it suggests, and subject to your correction, that we're seeing more alterations and additions than possibly in the past, but less new structures going up. Is anybody aware of any programs running in California now to stimulate further alterations and additions, as a lot of people are trying to stay in their homes and make the best of that situation and go forward? Is this an area where there might be a win-win in our trying to do something to stimulate alterations and remodeling and enhancements and improvements that would bring us in?
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
more
I know
activity there.
right now, just from what I generally hear, that there's various, through the federal government, their economic stimulus program right now, they have certain tax credits and benefits that are available to folks that put in, energy efficient windows or insulation, things like that, solar, lighting, solar water heating.
Okay, it just seemed natural. This would bring job opportunities for small companies and individual contractors that otherwise might not have any work. So I didn't know how the city might tie into stimulating that. Ongoing discussion, possibly.
Mayor and Council, we don't have anything available right now. We have for low and moderate income programs in purchasing or to renovating some houses to keep it in the low and moderate income categories, but for anything new for the general public, we're not aware of any ability to link into that at this point in time. But most of those programs that we've seen certainly one city that on the coast that has provided loans for solar heating and some of those energy efficient markets, but we haven't seen anybody else tag on to that, and that's been a fairly complicated process. So we still will evaluate it if there's something that comes along where the city could provide through some mechanism an ability to be more energy efficient and more cost effective. But right now we would need to have it. Other cities are doing it through general fund loan processes, and we're not able to do that right now.
Mr. Gronke?
Mayor, I'd just like to make a motion on the item if there's no more discussion, and thank staff for reintroducing the Buena Vista Creek project. I appreciate that.
I thought you were going to okay, thank you, Mr. Lopez. thought you were going to ask them about their crystal ball and when they see our sales tax and property tax begin to change the downward spiral to an upward spiral.
I've asked that question a couple times, and they just don't seem to be able to have that answer.
The crystal ball is not working yet.
I think maybe right now it's fluttering a bit.
Fluttering.
I think one of the most difficult things for council and for us is the lag time in terms of our receiving information. For instance, the Thanksgiving holiday, when we're able to actually get information through the state or through our consultants, it's always quite a ways down the road from right now. Though we'd like to answer that question right now, we won't be able to answer that question for some time, other than looking at national trends, which are not painting beautiful pictures at this point. But a lot of that is localized, so...
I just thought it might be interesting to the students that are here from Rancho Buena Vista High School is that a city such as Vista depends heavily on the amount of sales tax that we receive as well as the amount of property tax that we receive. And an economy that's in a state that our economy is in, where people and consumers like yourselves don't buy an awful lot, that means that cities aren't able to derive the benefit of your purchase from sales tax revenues. That means then we don't have enough money then to pay for services to provide to the public, such as police, fire, parks and recreation, any other service that we provide. So it's extremely important for us to expend less and less each year while this economy is in the state that it is in. And then as soon as we see, and hopefully we see a turnaround, then we'll be able to restore some of the services that we've had to cut. And we've had to cut significant services in the past year and a half. So it's important for us to have people shop in Vista so that we can use that sales tax to pay for the services that we provide the citizens here in Vista. So with that, we've had a motion and a second, so please cast your votes. Okay, that was passed unanimously. The next item.
I had something to say. Sure. If you don't mind. I had some, along with, because I had my light on.
I'm sorry, I didn't. Mr. Campbell as well. I'm sorry.
That's right. That's right, Mayor. Along with that I hear a lot. I go shopping a lot in downtown Vista with some of the markets and stuff, and I want the young folks from our community to know that I often hear that, well, Vista, because we had Prop L, is we have the highest sales tax in the city in the county. That is wrong. There's 5 or 6 other cities in the county that have higher sales tax than the city of Vista. So continue to shop in Vista because we do not have the highest sales tax in the county. Thank you.
If I
Campbell.
Somebody else, Mr. Gardner?
Mr. Gardner, did you say something?
No, I heard somebody
I was
say
just going to say what it is. It's 50 cents on $100.
50 cents.
And I don't think people realize that. It's
right.
50 cents on $100.
That's the difference. The difference is 50 cents on $100. If you spend $100, it's 50 cents more. That's it.
Mayor, thank you for talking to the students about the economic impact of shopping in Vista, but I think maybe we're missing another opportunity. They would qualify, I think, for our gift card program, and maybe somebody could recap that very quickly, because you can shop in Vista and get a nice rebate back on the gifts you've purchased if you buy it in Vista.
Mrs. Geldert, would you?
It's, I don't see Mr. Kevin Ham, our Economic Development Director here, but one of the things that the Shop Vista program campaign that the council launched this last year is that certainly if you buy automobiles, you're eligible for a $250 gift card, and if you also buy a large appliance in Vista and bring that receipt in, as well as as soon as Thanksgiving weekend hit through Christmas, December 31st, is that if you spend $300 and you bring in those receipts into the city, you're eligible for a $30 gift card to be spent in Vista. And so we encourage you to, if you or your parents spend $300 in Vista, you bring in those receipts, you get the $30 gift card to spend in Vista also.
And that includes food.
Yes. So it's easy to make a trip to Costco, buy groceries, and hit that $300 limit.
Or restaurants.
I would like to point out, though, we do not have an unlimited number of those cards, so
So come fast. All right, the next item on the agenda is item D4. Each year, we select someone to serve as the mayor pro tem. And it's come that time of year that this is an individual that will serve as mayor if the mayor is unavailable to perform his duties. And so we'll ask, is there anyone that would like to, Mr. Campbell?
I'd love to make the nomination, if I might. I've had the pleasure of serving as mayor pro tem this last year, and it's given me an opportunity to learn more about businesses in the city, meet more of the people in the community, attend more of the events, to share the load with the mayor, and it's been a pleasure and honor to do so, sir. And I'd like to heartily request nomination of Mrs. Ritter.
We're having a tough time tonight, aren't we?
Mrs. Ritter.
I'll second that, Mayor.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there any other motions?
My light's on.
Mr. Lopez?
I'd go along with that, too, Mr. Campbell. I, too, was Mayor Pro Tem last year, and you also get to go to a lot of different functions and meet a lot of folks and good folks in our community, and it's a good opportunity. But I think there's been council folks that have been on the council that have never had the opportunity to take the position of the mayor as Mayor Pro Tem. And last year, as Mayor Pro Tem, I had the opportunity of being on that position for 2 nights, so that was quite a thrill for me, and thank you very much. And go on.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
Sure, I would, if I were you. Might be close.
Yeah, it might be close.
Oh, my gosh, that passes unanimously. Okay, the next item on the agenda is a public hearing, and that public hearing is the adoption of standards for public works construction. This is, I believe, is an annual event, or at least every so often, that we have to keep up with the state of California. So, Mr. Pierce.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. As the Mayor said, yeah, over the years, and the most recent adoption was in June 2006, the standard drawings for public works construction, or what we normally call the Green Book, and the regional standard drawings for San Diego are reissued with updates. The standard drawings and the public works standards provide us guidelines for administering our contracts in construction for such public works as our streets, roads, traffic signals, storm drains, sewer lines. All of those things are covered in there. And the drawings provide us standard details so that as we work out there in the community, both us and the private developers, when we build a street or we build curb and gutter or we build sidewalk or driveways or anything like that, that everything is built to the same standard. The 2009 books have some changes in there. The 2009 book actually brought quite a few of the things that we have been carrying in our specifications as things that we wanted to see. We have several people that sit on the standard drawing committee and the specification committee, and those were able to be brought into the new standard specifications. So we've reduced the amount of information that we carry in our spec, and now we're using the standard drawing book and the standard specifications. So the state law, as the mayor said, requires the public hearing for the adoption of any codes by reference, and we have noticed this public hearing in the North County Times on November 24th and again on December 1st. And that concludes my report.
Okay, I don't have any requests to speak. The public hearing is open, and this is an opportunity. If you wish to speak about this standards for public works, now is the time to come forward and do so. Seeing none, is there any action by the City Council?
No. Close the public hearing and adopt the resolution.
I have a question.
Oh, Mr. Campbell, I'm sorry.
It's all right. It's quite all right. I'm no longer the mayor pro tem, so it doesn't. I get it. I get it.
Well, first of all, Mr. Campbell, before you do that, do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, we have a second. Now, Mr. Campbell.
Mr. Pierce, is there any jurisdiction in Southern California that you don't think will adopt this? In other words, I see your bid list, and it comes from all over Southern California. Will somebody not understand the rules?
Most likely not. It's adopted pretty much, at least Southern California wide.
Okay, and so this will deal with all public contracting?
Yes.
Great.
All public contracting that we do.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes. Okay, that vote is unanimous. The public hearing was closed, and the resolution was adopted. Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute break.
Judy, how soon you're back?
No, I hope you don't get this one like that.
first item, or how's it going to work? So I can understand.
Explain that there's going to be 3 different hearings, and I think people understand. So we're just trying to create a little bit of order, and ordinarily, especially for a separate hearing. There's a lot of people who want to do it. Hello. We've seen you for a while.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, not that when it's closed, right?
You knew why I was in about December.
Any time off?
Yeah, actually, I'm going to take a week
Also, kids aren't in school, you know. I gotta take care of
but I can certainly say that my time at work is a lot less exciting than my time at home.
See Larry first? Oh, you'll take him?
Larry's back there still. He should be.
You gotta stay in town for that week.
Yeah, so I'm not going to go anywhere. My family, my mom's This is where I find a cow's going to be down there. Jump out
Stay in Southern California.
Okay? As long as you stay away from my property. Yeah, it was really bad there. Too dry. Getting back on water.
This works. All good.
No, not really. That just provides good training. We live to cut down water. Cutting trees out. Fruit trees. Well, like my brother-in-law says, if the tree doesn't bear fruit, and they had to get fruit the last couple of years, so I said, that's where he gave, spend the water on it. It's not good. This rain is incredible. It's great. That feeds all my ponds. I have ponds going back to the house was at least 2,000 gallons. All the way to the top. I found that it's all the water shines down my sidewalk, down my across my patio. So I put in a drain there, connected the drain underground to my ponds. 2,000 gallons.
Trying to stay out of trouble, but I'm not entirely successful.
The new city council is back in session. Next item, which is the final item of tonight's agenda, is public hearing. Now, it's a joint public hearing and consideration of the city council and community development commission resolutions adopting a negative declaration for the North County Ford Automotive Dealership Project. It's a hearing by the Community Development Commission. It's a hearing by the Community Development Commission to consider approving a resolution of necessity authorizing condemnation of certain property and declaring the public necessity thereof for the acquisition of property for redevelopment purposes. And it's also a joint public hearing and consideration of City Council and Community Development Commission resolutions approving the summary report and acquisition, disposition, and development agreement with Care West Vista Way, LLC, and Vista Properties, LLC. Okay, I'd like to now declare that the public hearings are open. And this is the time and place for all persons to comment on the negative declaration for the North County Ford Automotive Dealership Project, the resolution of necessity regarding the acquisition of real property located at 242 Vista Village Drive, Vista, California, and the summary report and acquisition, disposition, and development agreement with Care West Vista Way, LLC, and Vista Properties, LLC. Staff will now present a report on these items.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. Bill Rawlings, Director of Redevelopment and Housing for the city. I wanted to share, we're excited to bring to you for your consideration tonight a project that we've been working on for over a year. About a year ago, a little more than a year ago, the Ford dealer came to staff and said, we'd like to explore the ability of restructuring the way we do our business. There are a lot of reasons, the economy and their particular situation. We reviewed their proposal, and we found that the best way forward, both for them and for the commission and the city, was to structure unfortunately, it's a little complicated deal, but the idea would be to structure a deal that would result both in a restructured Ford dealerships would stay in town, and would also create an opportunity to bring forward a Toyota or a Honda dealer or some other high-volume quality dealership. The idea would be to create long-term income stream for the city, additional sales tax, remove commercial underutilization in the area, and to create opportunities for further economic improvement in the city. We worked on that over the last year. We brought that to a close as far as negotiations related to that. One key piece of that project involves the acquisition of the Riviera Motel on 242 Vista Village. That piece is critical because it sits directly adjacent and would be an integral part of the new Ford development, and it's on a prominent corner, very commercially important in the city. Our approach has been, our goal has been to reach a negotiated settlement that's fair for all parties, and as I like to say, we're not in the business of eliminating businesses in the city. We want to attract more businesses to the city. So we've worked with the motel owner over the last few months to try to reach a fair settlement for both sides. I'm happy to report that we've made a significant progress in our approximately 6 meetings. Our discussions are ongoing, and we are hopeful that we can get to a point where we have an amicable resolution for both sides. The overall value of this project, there's a summary in your package, but the overall value has been conservatively estimated by our outside financial advisors at between $70 and $84 million. With that, I would sum up, and I'm available for questions.
Okay. In the order of things, let me first say that everyone that wishes to speak will have an opportunity to speak, and we're going to do this in an orderly manner. And the city attorney has outlined a number of or the way that this should proceed. So, if you'll bear with me, first of all, we're going to hear from the proponents of the project. That would be North County Ford. And so I'd ask Mr. Adrian Kosinski if he'd please come forward and speak.
Good evening, Mayor Vance and council members. My name is Adrian Kalinsky. I'm a vice president and general counsel for North County Ford, and I've been with the company since 2001. First, I wanted to say publicly thank you to the city staff that's worked with us to get the proposal to resolution tonight, and that's Bill Rawlings, Jeff Wyman, John Stone, and outside counsel for the city, Tom Clark. And then I'd like to update you as to where North County Ford is in today's economy and explain the progress that we've made towards fulfilling some of these expectations in the ADD already. As I'm sure you know, the last 3 years have been extremely difficult for car dealerships. We've seen our sales decline enormously, and we've had 3 of our brands taken from us through the factory bankruptcies. Ford offered all of their dealer bodies, including North County Ford, in excess of a 7-figure settlement in order to close the dealership and basically walk away. Ford did that in an attempt to consolidate their dealer body, basically reduce the number of dealers in order to make the remaining dealers more profitable. But we came to Vista in 1995 with a plan for success, and closing up our doors wasn't part of that plan. So, like Mr. Rawlings said, we came to the city. We weren't looking for a handout, but what we ended up with is a partnership. The development agreement, it helps North County Ford sustain its current operating system through these difficult times and save the jobs of all the employees at North County Ford, which right now is about 120 employees. But it also allows the city of Vista to participate in the profitability of North County Ford business when things get better, as a component of the rent structure is based on North County Ford's gross receipts. So in addition to the increase in sales tax revenue the city will realize, it's also a good plan as far as the rent structure goes. Let me talk a little bit about the new dealership. An integral part of the agreement here is to bring, like Mr. Rawlings said, a Tier 1 import dealership to the city of Vista. And while no manufacturers are issuing letters of intent today, they probably won't be doing so until the economy gets better. The dealership has 24 months to secure one of those Tier 1 dealers for a spot in Vista. Vista is an open point for Toyota, and it has been for Honda for some time. An open point means the factories have designated this area as a location they want to populate with a dealer in the near future. We're already the Toyota dealership in the Central Valley. It's our Hanford store. It's the newest Toyota dealership in California. And regional managers for both Honda and Toyota factories have come and visited the North County Ford facilities. They like the location. They want to be in Vista. In North County, Toyota outsells Honda at a ratio of 5-to-1 cars. Traditionally, Toyota beats Honda by about 2-to-1 cars. Honda wants to make up that gap, and understandably, Toyota wants to do everything they can to maintain that lead. So there's rest assured that they are coming to Vista at some point. Now, what happens if we're unable to secure the letter of intent in the next 24 months? Well, then we lose out on our right or our ability to do so, and we lose out on our right to lease that North County Ford space. So a dealership is going to be coming to Vista, whether or not we're the dealers yet to be determined. But this agreement basically ensures that Vista will have an automotive future, because the North County Ford facility is the place where an import factory is going to want to be. Our goals are aligned with the city. We've taken the equity out of the property that we've maintained or built over the last 10 years and rolled it into the lease. You know, it's not good business sense to buy high and sell low, and we're selling the property at today's appraisal rate, which I'm sure you understand is much less than the property would have appraised for 4 years ago, and hopefully less than what the property is going to appraise for 4 years down the road. So if we don't secure that letter of intent for one of those factories, you know, we're basically giving up the equity in that property. So I just want to say thanks to everybody. This really is the definition of what I think a community is, where the city is reaching out and helping the businesses rather than having an adversarial role. And I'll be here to answer any questions you might have.
Just one question. Is there anyone else that will be speaking, representing North County Ford?
No, just me, but Scott Crowley, who is the general manager and part owner of North County Ford, and he's here to answer any questions that might be over my head.
Would it be appropriate to take questions now, if they have questions? Are there any questions that any of the council members have? Mr. Gronke?
Thank you for coming to speak to us tonight, and thank you for staying in Vista. I really appreciate that, and as the city of Vista does from the tax revenues that we get from your corporation. I do have a couple questions. First of all, when it comes to moving forward to the new site, how much in the way of improvements will you be making to that new site? Do you have any idea what that cost value might be?
We don't, but we estimate it to be anywhere between $2 to $4 million. Well, it's going to require a tear down of the truck shop and what we call basically our used car detail. We're going to preserve as much of the existing business office, which is 355 West Vista Way, as possible. That becomes the showroom, and it's going to take a major reworking of the ingress and egress in order to provide, a service entrance as well as sales. And we've estimated that we can do it in between a year and 15 months.
Wow. Okay. And how about the present site, the site that Toyota might come into? Do you have to make improvements on that site to retrofit it for different card sizes or something like that?
Yes. Each factory has what's called site control, or I'm sure if you've ever bought a car before at a new car dealership, you'll realize that they all kind of look the same. And so the site control varies from factory to factory, but we would have to do a refresh to the building in order to make sure that the building conforms to the site control. An example would be the signage, the color, the type of tile on the ground, the furniture. They're very uniform from store to store, especially in California.
So you have your work ahead for both sites then?
We would be an improvement to the existing North County Ford site, which would become our import dealer, and it would be major construction, I would say, much more than a refresh to the new site. Okay.
And when it comes to the new site, the new Ford dealership site, there's a residential area right behind that. Are you accounting for that so there's not a lot of light bleed over into that neighborhood?
Performing, photo optic studies, soil studies, traffic, noise, pollution, in order to take the plan to Planning Commission, just like we would any type of new construction.
Okay. And if we were to approve this tonight, how soon might we see those dealerships opening up?
We would close North County Ford in 90 days, assuming that the due diligence takes place in 90 to, I'd say, maybe 100 days, and we would begin the process. We're going to begin the process to engineer the intersection, like I said, for the ingress egress immediately within 15 days. And then, of course, there's a back and forth where we submit our drawings and our concept plans. They need to be approved by the city. I imagine there'll be some back and forth on that, but we're ready to begin construction as soon as we get everything approved.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Lopez?
Thank you. Thank you for being here. It's a pleasure just driving by your building. Flashy old building there, and it looks great. A question: you have 24 months, Mr. Rollins. He has 24 months to provide another dealership there. Correct? Is that what he said?
That's correct.
Okay. And if we don't have all the land available, will we have the land available at that time? Within 24 hours, 24 months.
The deal is structured to, there is some latitude in the deal to allow for unforeseen circumstances that come up. However, the plan is to have a dealership secured, not necessarily open and operating, but they would have to have a contract in place, so to speak, to bring them. So there's actually a little bit more time than the 24 months to actually physically create the dealership.
There's two, if you allow me to fill in, Mr. Rawlings, and thank you, Mr. Lopez, for the question. There's two components in the relationship between a dealer and a factory right before they get open, and the first is a letter of intent. And the letter of intent is something that the factory issues to a dealer before the dealer is actually open for business. And the letter of intent is going to contain some preconditions, such as you have to refresh your facility, like I spoke about before. And once those are done, then the factory issues a sales and service agreement. And so the 24-month contemplates the written commitment from one of those Tier 1 import dealerships to come to Vista, and then there is some latitude as far as the actual date that they'll open, and that's going to be based on when North County Ford can be completed.
Okay. Any other, Mr. Campbell?
Mr. Kalinsky, thank you for coming this evening, and appreciate your overview for us. I probably misunderstood. You said Ford closing in 90 days. You're talking about the property, certainly not the dealership.
Certainly not. No, I meant to say closing the escrow.
Thank you. So you're continuing operation.
Scared a lot of people.
I thought I was having heart failure there.
There's
You'd be continuing operation until you actually had an opening of the new Ford location.
Yes, there's actually a covenant in the development agreement that requires North County Ford to continue operating as is until they've moved across the street to the new facility.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? Okay. We'll now hear comments from the public, and we're going to take these comments in the following order. First of all, public comments on the negative declaration. Second, interested persons' testimony and public comments on the resolution of necessity. And then third, public comments on the acquisition and development agreement. Okay, first of all, we'll begin with the public comments on the negative declaration for the North County Ford automobile dealership project. Is there anyone that wishes to speak on the negative declaration? Now, I have some names, some cards here, and I'm going to call those. I suspect from reading these that these are cards that will want to, or these people will want to speak on the comments on the resolution of necessity. So if not, if there's any that wants to speak on the negative declaration, please come forward. Okay, seeing none, we'll now receive oral and written communication from owners, tenants, and others with a direct interest in the property located at 242 Vista Village Drive, Vista, California, and their agents, attorneys, or representatives regarding the proposed resolution of necessity. Those with an interest in the property include property owners, residential tenants, business owners, and similar persons with a direct interest in the property. All other persons, including the general public, will be provided the opportunity to speak on this item after the interested persons have had the opportunity to speak. And the following are the legally relevant. The following are the legally relevant issues before the Commission. A, whether the public interest and necessity requires the project, whether the project is planned or located in the manner that will be most compatible with the greatest public good and the least private injury, and whether the property is necessary for the project. Okay? Like I say, I have several people that wish to speak. I think some are, and if you're not in that definition that I've outlined for those that have a direct interest in the property, then we'll catch you at the next level, which would be the general public. So, Michael Stump.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. If I may, I'd like to speak last. I have Mr. Sy here.
Okay. Mr. Sy, would you please come forward then and be the first speaker? No, Mercy.
Good evening. I am Pankaj Desai, the owner of Vista Riviera Motel on Vista Village Drive. For last 11 years, I have maintained it, improved it, and have made it successful business. It is my investment, my livelihood, my home, and my retirement. I understand that city may be within its rights to take my property, but I want to question that right. Their intent is to take my business and residence and give the land to local car dealers. See, taking the property undermines my equal standing with big businesses. I will be suffering. I do not understand why the city wants to buy my property. Moving an already existing car dealership within Vista does not seem to be in the public interest or necessity. It is not going to generate any additional income for the city. Instead, they will be spending $16 million in taxpayers' money to simply bail out and benefit an existing business. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stump, maybe you could help me out. Since you're going to be last, are there any others between you and them? And your name again?
Mary Smith.
Okay, Mary Smith. Okay.
I'm speaking on behalf of Mr. Sy and the property. I've been a tenant there off and on, and I am at present. And I don't understand why they want to remove a property that's so valuable to Vista, as far as we have a lot of people coming, not just from, out of state or in the city of Vista, but that come, that have to work. They come and they stay there while they're doing work. We have people in transition when they've lost a home or apartment and have to stay there until they can get into another one. He does a lot of good for that. We have a lot of business going on. And I don't understand, why the Ford company would need that property. They keep it up well. They're very nice people. They have 2 families living there that would have to have homes, as far as the owner and his son. They have, and I worry about as far as what kind of business is he going to have if you take that away from him. As I said, I'm just interested and want to speak. Thank you.
I don't have any other cards, Mr. Stump, so perhaps it's, unless Mr. Booth, are you associated with the property, or are you a private citizen?
Private citizen.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Stump.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council. Michael Stump. I'm with the Lofton firm and appearing on behalf of Mr. Desai. As I'm sure you're aware, the particular property that we're dealing with here is owned by Mr. Desai. It's not only his home, but his livelihood. It's not a situation that if the city does take the property, he can easily replicate. In fact, he can't at all. It's a particular unique piece of property. If it is taken, then Mr. Desai is not only going to have to find a new home, he's going to have to find a new business. We had the opportunity of meeting with Mr. Rawlings on Friday, which was very helpful. We appreciate it. We appreciate his sensitivity to the problems and the major, major impact this taking is going to have on Mr. Desai and his family. With that being said, if this is something that the city must do to meet their goals, then we would ask that the city and Mr. Rawlings continue to work with us to find a different situation and a new place for Mr. Desai to move, not only physically, but to move his livelihood to a new location. We appreciate the fact that Mr. Rawlings has offered the city's assistance to the degree it can to help if that does become a necessity. Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions from the council, Mr. Stump?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think next we'll hear public comments regarding the proposed necessity of resolution. Mr. Booth.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, Mr. Desai is a reasonable man. He's a hard-working man. He's bought a good investment a number of years ago, an investment that we all wish we could have bought. He's turned it into a good, profitable, successful business. He provides a vital service to the city of Vista. We do not have motel space enough compared with other cities. Most of the time, people who visit me go to Oceanside because that's where the motels are. He provides a home for his family, a livelihood. It's his investment. It's his retirement. You're taking his property on the basis of eminent domain. Eminent domain is from the Fifth Amendment. That's called the Bill of Rights. In fact, the period at the end of the taking clause is exactly the middle. of the Bill of Rights. Walk carefully. Walk very carefully. What you start here can damage the city. You're placing every single business property in the city of Vista on the selling block. Someone wants it, and I think Ford wants it and has wanted it. They have made offers to Mr. Desai that he's rejected because he knows it's a valuable location that has great potential. Do I have your attention, Mr. Mayor?
You do.
Okay. He doesn't want to sell at the present time. He knows it's of great value. The Ford dealership wants it, desires it. Is it necessary? No, it's not necessary. It's a beautiful location, beautiful corner location. I would love to own that property. I would hold on to it and hold on to it as long as I could. He should be able to. Property rights, basic constitutional rights. Don't stand against the Constitution. The Founding Fathers are on his side. I stand with him. Where do you stand? You put every business in jeopardy in the city of Vista. Who wants to buy a business in the city of Vista? If you can just take it away when you want it at low property values during a recession. You're starting down a dangerous road. You're going toward anarchy. This is not just government. This is injustice. And I know you're legally able to do this, but check the morality. Are you going to send a message to first-generation Americans that cities will just take away your property if it's profitable? Don't push around Americans, please.
Thank you, Mr. Booth. Finally, we'll now hear from hear public comments regarding the summary report and acquisition, disposition, and development agreement with CARE, West Vista Way LLC, and Vista Property LLC. Is there anyone that wishes to offer public testimony on the disposition and development agreement? Okay, seeing none. Does staff have any comments they wish to make at this time in response to any of the public testimony or comments that have been made thus far?
None at this time, Mayor.
Okay. Let's open up to the City Council and Board to discuss. Mr. Gronke.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of questions to staff when it comes to the disposition of the storage facility. If we were to go through this action tonight, when would we gain control of that location?
The storage facility on Lotto de Loma would return to the control of the city concurrent with the first closing. So it would be within 90 days.
And so at that time, we'd have an opportunity to relook at the feasibility of using that site for other purposes.
Absolutely. We have looked at that property, and while continuing forward as part of this project, it's not needed. It is a very valuable piece of property, and if you will, it's a credit on the side of the ledger for the city. It creates an opportunity for us not only to recontrol a valuable piece of property, but it opens up opportunities for future development. We don't have a specific plan for that yet. If this were to go forward, that would be right at the top of our list, is figure out how to maximize the use of that property.
Okay. And when I look over some of the finances of this proposal, I noticed that the sales tax, of course, fluctuates because the number of units sold could vary, and the tax increment is well established. But I have a question about the rent-to-debt service. Why does that vary? Is that because of the financial piece of it, or because the debt piece doesn't alter, does it?
The rent is structured to gradually grow over time. There are two components to it. There's a base rent, and then there is a percentage. The city would participate in a percentage of every gross dollar sold in the two units. That percentage also grows over time. The idea is to allow enough time for stabilization of the two new projects, and then you have a rather aggressive growth in both base rent and percentage that results in the value coming to the city.
So when I look at those numbers, the initial number is probably the initial time pattern. And
Yes.
then as time goes on and the units and number increase and the value of the property increases and so forth, then our participation gets better.
Yes, that's
Okay,
correct.
Understand. Okay. Thank you.
Any of the members of the city council have any questions or wish to discuss this? Mr. Lopez?
Eminent domain, I hate the word, Dan. I really hate the word. I remember when we first brought redevelopment to the city of Vista, there's three of us up here who really worked hard on bringing redevelopment to the city of Vista. And that one word, those words were very strong with folks who tried to have redevelopment passed. And it always worried me when I was for redevelopment, but even though I was for redevelopment, that bothered me tremendously because I own property downtown Vista, and eventually they will be coming down my street, and I don't know what's going to happen, but they will be there someday. But I look at it in a different way. I don't want to sell because, when you've been in a business 40 years like I have in Vista, it's like you're married to it, and it's very hard to leave a business, and you're very emotional, and it really gets to you. And especially with the times the way they are, you really feel, that, what's happening with our economy, are we going to continue to do well? And so we brought redevelopment to help take care of areas that need fixing up, which would improve our community. And redevelopment was a tool that is through the state, which is a good tool, and it's there for purposes like this, that to help the city, and hopefully that the city will be able to sit down and negotiate and work with the folks that possibly don't want to sell. I feel, and I will be watching this very closely, that the city does. I know that the gentleman does not want to sell his property, and it's his livelihood, but I, as a property owner on Santa Fe, will wait for the city to come and negotiate with me. Maybe it might be an opportunity for me to go ahead and do something different when the time comes. I don't think that anyone up here on this dais will deliberately do any harm to any business in this community. I know I won't, and I think I've talked to Bob, and Mr. Vance, and all of us, and we just do not hurt businesses in this community, and but we need this to go forward, and we have a company that's willing to go forward with this, and tonight I will be in support of this, and the words bother me, but when you look at what it's going to do in the community, all week I've bothered with this. I'm sorry I'm taking so long, Mr. Vance, but all week it's bothered me about eminent domain here in Vista, and to say that we are going to hurt people, we're not. We have a very good man, Mr. Rollins here, working for the city of Vista, and I feel very confident in this man that he'll sit down and work with you to come up with a good deal that you would be comfortable with. And I just don't feel, and I will be watching this very closely, I just do not feel that we will hurt anyone in this community. Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Rawlings, that I know because we work with redevelopment and you over time, and we've gotten to understand more and more of the protocols and procedures. I don't think the general public does. I see young people in the audience and others that are here. Mr. Booth expresses, I think, a legitimate concern as to what we're doing and why we're doing it and how we do it. Could you explain how we work with Mr. Desai in terms of the process, the way his property would be evaluated, the equitableness of that, if that's the process, and I believe it is, the timing on it, what would the impact be on him if we go forward with this in terms of his ability to relocate his business, and what efforts will we make to see that that's done well?
I'd be happy to elaborate on that, Mr. Campbell. Redevelopment law requires us to do many things, including evaluate to make sure that the person that we buy from, whether it's through eminent domain or not through eminent domain, is we have to follow certain protocols. We need to make sure that we're compensating them fairly for their property. And what that specifically means is we use an independent third-party licensed appraiser, somebody who is a specialist in the field of evaluating properties in an eminent domain situation or in a purchase situation, to set a value.
I'll jump in with a side question to that. Can they bring in their own appraiser?
They certainly can.
And what if there's a disagreement on value?
Then we do negotiate. We want to have that on the table and understand what the value is and where they're coming from. And we also initially, in a discussion like this, and in fact we did this with this property owner, offer to include them in the development. So they have the option to participate in some fashion. That can take many forms. It can be as an investor, or it can be as part of the developer. We also are required to address any housing issues that might come from this. Now, in this particular case, as has been noted earlier, it's a unique situation where we have both a business and the operators living on site. Now, the minute that we have a housing issue involved, we take on a whole other responsibility, which is to make sure not only that we provide adequate replacement housing for the folks involved, but that we, in a macro sense, looking citywide, that we do not diminish the amount and quality and availability of the housing stock. So we have another order of magnitude of responsibility that we have to address. Further, it's in the council has stated, and I certainly agree, it's in the interest of the city to reach a negotiated settlement with this property owner. And of course, we have, as Mr. Stump noted, we've had some very productive discussions already thus far. And we have honed in on some specific things that the property owner here feels that they would need to be treated in a fair and a be made whole manner. And we have looked at that and evaluated it, and we think we have an approach that can work. And so we're pursuing that.
And then explain about timing. Say, in your thought process of how this would evolve, what sort of timing are we talking about? Where should we move forward, and you can't reach a negotiated settlement and need to move forward on that? What impact does that have on Mr. Desai and his family?
While the time frame would vary, we don't know exactly, but it could take as long as 18 months for us to move forward with this process. All the time, us working towards a negotiated settlement.
Okay, so you'll keep him included in the, should we go forward in the process going all
Absolutely.
the way to the point of decision. Just for the record, I'd like to affirm that I was the original Economic Development Director and Redevelopment Director and Chairman of the Citizens Committee that put together the redevelopment plan in 1985 with Mr. Lopez as part of that committee. Mr. Vance was the city manager at that time. And we looked very long and hard at every individual parcel in what is now called the redevelopment plan area. And for Mr. Desai's reference, we indeed identified that entire area as an area that needed improvement. And we envisioned what the future might hold for that area. And I think you see today a car dealership, you see a retail center, you see, if you look at an aerial view from 20 years back, there's been quite a metamorphosis of the area, all intended with improving the quality of life and the values in the area. I would like to think that the value of your property has improved, and you've made a very wise choice in selecting that. And I feel confident that the process will work out well, although any change is disruptive. And I certainly apologize for that disruption. But I believe that the future of this community requires us sometimes to make a tough decision. This is a very difficult one, as Mr. Lopez said. But I do support the action this evening that we're being asked to consider, with the caveat that we will make every effort, and I repeat, every effort, to be fair, equitable, and accommodating to Mr. Desai.
Okay, Mrs. Ritter.
Actually, Mr. Campbell said it pretty well. I also don't like eminent domain, and in the 11 years that I've served on the council, we've never had to do it, although when we did the Krikorian Center, I think we did a resolution of necessity, possibly on a couple of businesses in there, but we never had to do eminent domain. We settled with them and relocated them, and and I think they're very happy with the settlement, that we were very fair. So, but looking at the big picture of Vista, we need to diversify our tax base and our businesses in Vista, and so we're kind of looking, in order, the state has taken a lot of our money, so in order to provide our necessary services, we have to look at the big picture of Vista and, and redevelop it and continue to look at things that will help, help us maintain our services and fix our potholes and all of those things. So, like Mr. Campbell and Mr. Lopez, I very much agree with them, and hope that we can come to a fair price and compensation and, relocation for the owner of the motel, and but I just don't like the eminent domain.
Mr. Rawlings, perhaps you could explain also, there's one other question that I had, and that was with regard to the process in which we would exercise eminent domain if that becomes necessary, and some of the things that would be of benefit to perhaps Mr. Sy. One of them included, I think, a payment for goodwill that he's established as a business with a clientele. Could you kind of explain that to me?
I'd be happy to, Mayor. Under that process, we would look holistically at Mr. Desai's operation, and we would be looking at both his business and his use of the property as a home. He would be entitled to relocation assistance related to his home. He would be entitled to a fair price for his property. We would, and by the way, we would look at including these items as part of a negotiated settlement as well. We would also be attempting to replicate, to the extent that we could, his existing operation. So that would enter into it as well. There would be consideration for goodwill for his business, the value of the materials and equipment on the site, a whole range of items designed to keep him in the same place that he is now, so that he's compensated fully. And that is that is a responsibility that the redevelopment agency would have, and would takes very seriously and would pursue aggressively to make sure that he's fully and completely compensated.
Okay. I think I have to agree with my colleagues that the fact is that I would hope that this negotiation continues in a manner that we can come to a negotiated settlement for the property. I don't think anyone likes to see the eminent domain process used. I know that what we talked about in here was we talked about the private good as well as the public good, and I firmly believe that that a city needs to do everything it can to provide for the services that we need in the community. And unfortunately, sales tax is one of the greatest needs that we have, as well as tax increment and property tax, but sales tax is primarily. So that as we go through this process of trying to determine what is a public good, we're caught between the idea of not being able to provide services and of this gentleman's property rights. And I think that we're trying to be as equitable as we possibly can. At least that's what I understand from the staff, that we are trying to do everything in our power to come to a negotiated settlement. And I think we as a city council want to make sure that that takes place. But I think that the overall good for the community is the fact that we do need the revenues that would be derived from the projects that have been suggested in order to provide for the public good, and that's public safety services as well as any other services that we do as a community provide. And again, I'm hopeful that we can come to a negotiated settlement. Mr. Booth, you've already spoken. I don't. I'd like to respond. Does the council want to hear Mr. Booth? Pardon? Mr. Lopez?
Well,
One speaker.
Mr. Booth, be my guest.
I'd like to remind the city council that the Bill of Rights is for individual rights. I've heard for the good of Vista, for the good of the public, for public good. When it comes to Bill of Rights, it's for the minority, it's for the individual, favor of the individual. The majority can become a tyranny otherwise. You can get your way in every event. Give Mr. Desai his right to market his property when he wishes, for how much he wishes. That's his right. That's all I have to say.
Okay.
Yeah, if I could.
Okay, I guess we do have first of all, Mr. Campbell, then Mr. Lopez, and then Mr. Piper.
Thank you. I would like to think, in relationship to what Mr. Booth just said, that we are smart enough, entrepreneurial enough, and supportive enough to think that Mr. Desai may have a dream of someday wanting to do something larger, more rooms, more facilities, and you've clearly, I think, indicated your desire to do a good job, and we respect that. But is it possible, from your knowledge, and it is from mine, that the redevelopment agency, at whatever the settlement cost is, can work with Mr. Desai in such a way that he might be able to leverage this into the next step of his dream?
Yes, Councilmember. In fact, that is the general outline of the approach that we are taking in our discussions with Mr. Desai. The idea being that this could be an opportunity both for the city to create much-needed new amenity and for Mr. Desai to participate in that such that he's in a better place financially, economically than he's at. And that is generally speaking the basic push of our ongoing discussions. In fact, to try to create a win-win scenario where both parties will come out on yet another project separate from this one that would further the goals of the redevelopment agency and the city to create opportunities and amenities within the city. And it would also benefit Mr. Desai.
I trust your dedication to that. Thank you.
Mr. Lopez?
I've had many meetings with Mr. Rollins since he came on board. And we meet every couple of months and have breakfast, and we discuss things about our community. And in talking with Mr. Rollins, I've found that he is a man that when he said he's going to do something, he's going to do it, and he's a man of his word. And he's a man that will sit with you and discuss things where both parties will benefit from it. When it comes to coming to buy my property, I hope that Mr. Rollins is around so I can sit with him and discuss my property, because I know that he will be fair and will work things out so both parties will do well. Tonight we worked on an item where you couldn't sell cars on the along the street. Why? Because those cars were from other cities. If we're going to sell cars, let's sell them from our city, from our dealerships, and keep the money here, is the way I look at it. And, but again, I have confidence in Mr. Rollins and in this council that we will not hurt a business. And I will be the first one to yell, and you come to my business, and I will be there to listen to you, because I will be the first one to stop anything that is not right. Thank you.
Mr. Piper.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to take a moment to focus on the findings that relate to the resolution of necessity and a little broader discussion of the issues, which really can be found on page 3 of 240. And it's a discussion of the public interest and necessity, and to focus on the fact that this property is part of a project area that has been determined to be blighted. It is also part of a project area that has a master plan, and in looking at the findings that are proposed to be made tonight, these are among them: that the subject property is within a blighted area, that it prevents the effective use of property for the removal of blight and for the assembling of property in order to effectuate the redevelopment plan, which is a public purpose, and that the proposed project is planned in an area and manner compatible with the greatest public good and the least private injury, albeit perhaps some, but the least, and it involves the reversal of blight and the removal of blight and the execution of the plan. It addresses the underutilization of the property by this particular use, and that the property is necessary for this project, for the assemblage, to eliminate the underutilization, that the property doesn't meet current building requirements, and it's inconsistent with other uses that are in the area. And those are among the findings that are proposed to be made tonight, and I simply wanted to make the record clear as to those elements of this discussion.
Okay, are there any other? Okay, Mr. Desai, I think you said that you wanted to speak? Okay, very good. Okay, if I see no other individuals wishing to speak, and we have, should the council wish to proceed with this, there are 3 motions that are necessary. And would we... Can
you do it?
Mrs. Ritter?
Read them in the record?
Okay, yes, you do.
Okay, I make the motion to declare the public hearing closed, to approve City Council Resolution 2009 next in order, and Community Development Commission Resolution 2009 next in order, adopting a negative declaration for the North County Ford Automotive Dealership project, and to...
That's fine.
Is
We
that-
need to take a vote on that one.
No,
There's
it
more.
will, I'm sorry, it continues.
Okay. Go ahead.
There's more, right?
There's more.
And to approve the Community Development Commission Resolution 2009 next in order, entitled "A Resolution of the Community Development Commission of the City of Vista Authorizing and Directing the Condemnation of Certain Real Property in the County of San Diego, State of California, and declaring the public necessity therefore."
That's it. I'll second that, Mayor.
Okay, very good. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, please cast your votes. Okay, and that passes unanimously.
To continue, or?
Okay, if you'd like.
Okay. The next is a motion to adopt the City Council Resolution 2009 next in order and Community Development Commission Resolution 2009 next in order, approving the summary report and the acquisition, disposition, and development agreement with CARE/West Vista Way LLC and Vista Properties LLC.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes. And that passes unanimously. One more.
Okay, the motion to authorize the city manager and executive director to execute the escrow instructions, deeds, and other documents and actions required to close escrow and implement the project on behalf of the city and commission.
I'll second that, Mayor.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes. Okay, and that passes unanimously as well. And that concludes the actions to be taken on this particular item. We'll move on then from this public hearing to oral communications. First of all, Jonathan Ramirez. Is Jonathan Ramirez here? Oh, Jonathan.
Good evening, Mayor. My name is Jonathan Ramirez. I'm a resident of Vista, and I just wanted to speak about building a skate park here in Vista, because I know you took the one here by the library down, and I've seen that Vista doesn't have one, and I think you guys should build one so that skaters won't be skating around just everywhere in Vista and then getting in trouble by the police all the time. And yeah, that's all I have to say.
Well, thank you. Just to give you, were you here at our meeting our last meeting?
No, I wasn't.
Well, during that meeting, there was a discussion of the skateboard park at a specific location, and the council pretty well felt that that wasn't the proper location for a skateboard park, and that perhaps a better location would be within one of our parks. And so that we gave direction to staff to go ahead and to provide us with the information necessary to locate that skateboard in a park, and we hope to proceed with that.
All right.
So, I don't know when it'll be, but I'm hopeful that with the economy the way it is, that it won't be too much longer that we'll be able to do that. So
Okay.
we really appreciate you coming and speaking to us tonight.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next is George Maverick.
I have two concerns. One is the placement of oral communications. I feel oral communications should be at the beginning of the meeting and not at the end, unless you're trying to discourage oral communications. Then you would put it at the end, and we would have to wait 2 hours before we voice something that has nothing to do with what is being discussed at the council. So I would like to have that at the beginning. My second concern is you have an ordinance against barbed wire. I have some material stored at a storage area in which your code enforcement officer told us to take down the barbed wire for some reason. Now, it is a haven for every drug addict or vandal in the neighborhood. I've been vandalized recently. Someone else in the same park has been, things have been stolen. These are things that could have been prevented if the barbed wire was in place. I'm just dying to find out from the council, where is the wisdom that you have taken down the barbed wire and leave us vulnerable to all this kind of problems? Could someone please respond to that?
We have a gentleman here that can respond to you, Mr. Conley, who's our community development director, and that falls under his jurisdiction. That action was made several years ago, and it was before my time, so I'm not sure. I think the reason was because of public safety for officers that are pursuing or for pursuing those that are committing illegal activities, and that we had some injuries with some of our public safety officers with the barbed wire. I believe that was the reason.
That is, sir, that is totally bogus if you can understand what you just said. It has nothing to do with protecting our property.
Like I say, I wasn't here and I don't have an answer, but I'm sure Mr. Conley would be happy to address that to you as following this meeting. And the other, as far as the oral communications is concerned, we as a council made that decision because of the fact that we've had some difficulties during oral communications with inappropriate behavior, and it was a case of feeling that those who came and took the time to put stuff on the agenda deserved to be heard before those that came that hadn't beforehand put something on the agenda.
Okay, sir, it makes absolutely no sense to me.
Okay.
Anyway.
Mr. Campbell.
If I could help a little bit, the decision was made in 2002, and it is correct what the mayor did state on that. There's a 3-year period of transitioning away from that to find other alternatives, and there's a department within the sheriff's department which will come to your property and work with you to evaluate what can be done to improve the security for it, because we recognize the threat you're under. I
made a police report when for this vandalism that occurred at my property, and the sheriff came over, and I said, the city made us take down this barbed wire. He says, why did they do that? I couldn't answer him.
Maybe the captain might join Mr. Conley.
Now, I think we have a sheriff's captain and a community development director that might be able to give you better answers. I'm sorry.
Well, I hope they have some answers as to how we can protect our property now.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Next is Cliff Kaiser.
My name is Cliff Kaiser. I am the chairman of the Vista Chamber of Commerce at 201 Washington Street in Vista. Mr. Mayor, Council, I would like to give you a great thanks for the successful Christmas parade that the Vista Chamber hosted on behalf of the city of Vista this past weekend. Without your financial and moral support, this could not happen. We certainly appreciate that. It was an outstanding success with more entrants into the parade than in previous years at 93 entrants, and a excellent attendee crowd, and the addition of the new Village Fest that brought new activities to the event that day, as well, of course, the Krikorians snow event and the Santa there. So thank you very much on behalf of the Vista Chamber of Commerce.
Well, on behalf of the City Council, I know it was a great honor to be in the parade, and I noted that I think we had a larger crowd at the parade than we've ever had before, at least in my memory. And so I think the parade was well done, and it was a great success. And I know that members of the City Council look forward to doing it again.
Great.
So thank you.
This was our 53rd here in Vista, and we look forward to the 54th.
Okay. Good. Thank you. Okay, that concludes oral communications. Mr. Piper, do you have any remarks?
Well, I would like to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and a wonderful, joyous, and profitable New Year.
Okay, Mrs. Gelder, do you have any staff reports, or staff remarks, I should say?
No more staff reports this
Thank
year.
goodness.
Thank you. And the same best wishes as Mr. Piper, and as well as when we reconvene in January, we will be looking at certainly a very important another measure that will be put forth by the League of California Cities on Taxpayer Protection Act, and we will be bringing you lots of information on that to assist and getting the community involved in protecting what's left of our revenues that do come in, and looking forward to many more dollars for next year. Thank you very much.
Good. Mr. Gronke?
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. Just one thing. I'd like to think that as we go into the future, now that we have Sonic Burger and hopefully that Yellow Deli come to the older section of the downtown area, that I've talked to individuals and they thought that maybe we need to increase the lighting down there for security purposes, so you might want to look into that coming into the new year. I do want to thank Mr. Garcia and all the people from the public maintenance for cleaning up our city after that wind gust we had go through, and I think here we have another storm coming through on Thursday, so everything looks good. I really want to thank them for everything they've done. I had a great time at the parade, Mr. Kaiser. It was a lot of fun, and even after the parade, all the events that went on within the city. And so with that, I'd just like to say Merry Christmas, everybody, and have a great New Year, and I'll see you next year, then.
Thank you. Mrs. Ritter?
I would just, same thing. Happy, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everyone. See you all next year.
Okay, Mr. Campbell?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Kaiser. I think the Chamber and the DVBA did a great job of coordinating this and working with the city, and as such, I think the citizens had a great time just looking at the smiles on the faces of the people based on a variety of entries we had. The planes flying over was spectacular. And then the following night on, I guess, Desperate Housewives, one of those crashed in the street as part of their story, but I had no concern about that here. I think this has been a very, very challenging year. I thank Mrs. Geldert and the staff in particular for working through all the issues that we've been facing. I don't know that next year will be necessarily much easier, but possibly not necessarily pleasantly so, but predictable. Because we're facing I don't quite know where we'll be coming out the end of this tunnel, but I think we have the right guidance and a team on board to do the best we possibly can for the community. And Mr. Desai, I wish you a happy holiday, and we'll look forward to working with you.
Mr. Lopez?
Thank you, Mayor. Before I say Merry Christmas and all that, I have a thing today that I was watching TV today, and the President spoke today. And the President spoke, go out in your community and figure out ways where we can save money. Talk to your neighbors, talk to your cities, talk to the business owners. Figure out how you can save money to make our economy continue to grow. And one of the things that's been on my mind is that with this city here, and I'm hoping that you think about this, council and city management, that next year that we come back, our economy is not moving like we would like it to move, and development is not working, I don't feel, in this community like it should be moving. And possibly maybe that's why we're not doing a lot of development here in our community. I'd like to see our developers' fees looked at and possibly reduced a little bit to bring more business into our development, into our community. Development, infill development, and development all over our community. So I hope that this council thinks about this and will come back after the first of the year and let's think about this and do something about it, because we need to do something about those fees and about bringing business to our community. I have, in my business, have dropped my prices and am doing 2 dinners for $20, which is, you have to do different things to attract business. And I think that if this city looks at that, I think that we can make things happen in our community in the next year to come. Merry Christmas to all of you, and thank you for all the help and things that you've done for our community, the involvement that you have done, and also to our staff. They have worked hard. We are short on staff, and they've done a tremendous job, and Merry Christmas to our staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez, and again, it's been a pleasure working with you all this year. I look forward to it next year with the staff as well, and hope you have a great holidays. And with that, we are adjourned.